Pawn e2 to e4. Pawn e7 to e5. Pawn f2 to f4. Pawn d7 to d5. Pawn e4 takes d5. Pawn e5 to e4. Pawn d2 to d3. Knight g8 to f6. Pawn d3 takes e4. Knight f6 takes e4. Knight b1 to d2. Bishop f8 to b4. Bishop f1 to b5, check. Pawn c7 to c6. Pawn d5 takes c6. Pawn b7 takes c6. Bishop b5 takes c6, check. Knight b8 takes c6. Pawn a2 to a3. Bishop b4 takes d2, check. Bishop c1 takes d2. Queen d8 takes d2, check. Queen d1 takes d2. Knight e4 takes d2. King e1 takes d2. Castle kingside. King d2 to e1. Rook a8 to b8. Rook a1 to b1. Bishop c8 to f5. King e1 to d1. Knight c6 to d4. Pawn c2 to c3. Bishop f5 to c2, check. King d1 to c1. Bishop c2 takes b1. King c1 takes b1. Knight d4 to b3. Knight g1 to f3. Pawn a7 to a5. Knight f3 to e5. Knight b3 to d2, check. King b1 to a1. Rook f8 to c8. Rook h1 to d1. Knight d2 to c4. Knight e5 takes c4. Rook c8 takes c4. Rook d1 to d5. Pawn a5 to a4. Pawn f4 to f5. Rook c4 to h4. Pawn h2 to h3. Rook b8 to b7. Rook d5 to d8, checkmate.